Hello, my fellow vintage drum enthusiasts. Jim Messina is my name, and once again I have another interesting video about vintage drums to offer you. Today I have some examples of early hi-hat technology. Okay? We're all familiar with the hi-hat of today, but in the 20s, early 30s, there was a different story. And this is a good example right here. It's called a Lowboy. Hi-hat Lowboy. It had a skeleton type pedal. As you can see here, this is referred to some by as the skeleton pedal. They were made by Wahlberg and Auger, most of them were, and simply sold through the various American drum companies. Those companies a lot of times would just slap their name on it, but you'll see it in a lot of the catalogs. But it was made by Wahlberg and Auger. Kind of works like this. Now these were actually made to collapse. They were made with, so you could just break them down real quick. You would just unhook them like this. That falls flat. Take your cymbals off. And the whole thing would just fold down very easily. And now that fits nicely into your trap case. Pretty ingenious. Now, these were very popular before the days of actually doing stick work on the hi-hat. It was just played with your foot, kind of a chick sound. But later on, drummers felt the need to play with their sticks, and they, developed all the rhythms that you can do on a hi-hat. But there was a precursor to this Lowboy. And I own one right here. I actually showed this in another video, but here it is. This is called a DUNCAN sock pedal, also made by Wahlberg and Auger. It was the precursor to the Lowboy. I don't know how well you can see that, but it has the same skeleton pedal, but the design is totally different. The cymbals are mounted vertically, and they have a bar that comes up over the top, and then the pedal activates another horizontally mounted cymbal, and they smash together. Very popular pedal. There were two versions of this. One had like a cast base to it where you can see the legs coming off on this one. This is the second version that they made. It's actually very rare. I took this to the Chicago show when it was delivered to me by my brother who lives in Cleveland. We met at the show, and he delivered it to me there. We walked around the show with it. I do have some footage of that if you look at some of my other videos at Gumph1234. That's Gumph 1234. You see all these videos lined up. You can, there are interviews there with Bunny Carlos, Mike Corrado, the famous English collector Dave Brown, who now has this DUNCAN sock pedal in his possession. He and I came to an agreement. We made a trade. He had something that I wanted, and this definitely belongs with the set that he has. He has a beautiful do-all set that fits this pedal perfectly. So it's in a good place, and he is now the caretaker for now. But this was a nice thing to have in it. Go look at the video of it. You'll see me walking around the Chicago show, and there's a lot of guys calling me over and saying, "Let me see that. Is that for sale?" And they had never seen one. In fact, Winnie Mensink, the popular pedal collector from the Netherlands, we sat down and we talked, and he just kind of said, I've never actually seen one in person. So I never have either. This is the only one I know of, so if any of you guys out there have seen another one, let me know. Now, as time went on, the hi-hat progressed, and I have an example again. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to fit this whole thing in the frame, but here's the top cymbals. Again, they were using the small cymbals with the large bell. This one has some rivets on the bottom. It's kind of neat. I've actually played this on jobs, and it was fun. But let's take a look at the pedal again. We have the long standard height bar here now, the shaft. See, the hi-hat has now progressed where you can play patterns with sticks on it. But here we go again with the skeleton design pedal. So all three of these examples I've given you have this same footboard, maybe a little variation on this base, but this is what everybody was using until maybe, you know, later in the 50s, even the 40s. They started changing the footboards, kind of like the way they changed lugs. You know, they changed from tube lugs to the various designs that the American drum companies would use to denote their drums, so they'd be separate from the others. But this is just a little bit of history about the development of the hi-hat. Started out with this version, the Duncan sock pedal. And there were others too around this time because, again, the drum set was just developing, and so guys had to play, you know, they play a snare drum along with a bass drum, and they were trying to figure out how to hit it with their mallet and still play patterns on a snare. Hence, the bass drum pedal came in. Speaking of, we have a couple right here. Let me show you. You'll see a lot of these on eBay and around, but this is an example of the early bass drums. It's a leady Fraser pedal. Works very similar to contemporary pedals of today, except here you have the spring and the adjustment screw right in this center post. A little hard to see, but... And they, of course, used large beaters in those days with sheepskin over them. But these are smooth pedals. I've cleaned this one up, done a little work on it. Very smooth. Another interesting pedal would be from the Barry Company. Now these you don't see because the Barry Company wasn't around that long. They were famous for the Barry collapsible bass drum, the aluminum bass drum, and they had aluminum snare drums. Very sought after. I really wish I had a snare drum like that, and I've seen them. But again, same technology pretty much. Pretty quiet. So the bass drum pedal hasn't changed all that much. But it's an interesting pedal. So there's just a little bit about some early drum technology. Jim Messina is my name. Go look at the other videos. See you back here for some more stuff. See you later.